Hello everyone. Welcome to my first video featuring a specific location. I made this trip when I was just contemplating making photography videos back in the spring of 2021, about 7 months ago. The footage I shot was just terrible and could not be used, as I had not quite figured out how to shoot good video. Fortunately, one of the people with me took some decent footage with their iPhone, and I came up with some good still shots to supplement it. I think the whole thing turned out very well regardless. I just wanted to mention at the beginning here that in future videos featuring a location, I will be including lots of video and will limit the use of still pictures. So here we go. Here's an all too common situation. I'm going somewhere for a few days and excellent photo taking opportunities will definitely happen one way or another. However, it's kind of a spontaneous trip as far as what the destinations will be, and I'll be hanging out with people who may not be enamored with me constantly fiddling with a camera. So my gear has to be light and quick. I'm talking about going to Washington, D.C. for a long weekend in mid-April, and that can mean gardens full of flowers in bloom, maybe cherry blossoms, scenic rivers and woods maybe, historic architecture perhaps. What gear should I bring? I'm a longtime vintage camera user and collector, and a photographer since I was 13 years old. I like to inform people about the usability and affordability of decades-old photo gear, combined with digital cameras, film scanning, and photo editing software. I want to promote the use of vintage and digital to help people improve and enjoy their photography at a reasonable cost. I usually feature an interesting location as well to inspire you to get out and take more pictures. I'm Tim McCauley, and these are my insights on photography with vintage plus digital. In those situations, I prefer a small, lightweight camera with few lenses, or maybe just one lens to keep it simple. If I'm shooting film, that would be a small 35mm camera like these guys, Pentax ME Super or Olympus OM1, with a single lens like 35 or 40mm. Or maybe just a small 28 to 70mm full frame equivalent. Short zoom lens. If I'm shooting digital, I might take this tiny 12 megapixel camera or shoot entirely with the iPhone X, which by the way takes awesome pictures. I'm not in love with the image quality of this tiny Digicam for landscapes, and I don't want to be stuck with the 26mm equivalent lens on the iPhone. I decided on the Sony A6000 because it gives me excellent 24 megapixel images that are actually as good as or better than medium format film. I also added the tiny 16 to 50mm kit lens for that camera just to have it handy. Well, I don't like to use this lens for shooting landscapes in infinity because the corners can get fuzzy. So I decided to bring a few others, the Olympus 21 and 24mm prime lenses, and also a small 28 to 70mm Tokina zoom lens, and also my favorite 16mm Rokinon wide angle. Now this is not a vintage lens, but it offers great corner-to-corner image quality and 24mm full frame equivalent focal length on the A6000. I also brought my small handheld light meter to measure incident light or the light falling on the subject and just check my camera meter readings to guarantee excellent exposure. And it all fit in this one small bag, a Lowepro Nova 1 bag. You know, it's funny, when I first got this camera, the A6000 in late 2020, it seemed like a toy. It was just a tiny little thing with plastic exterior that seemed a lot like the tiny Digicams I used for snapshots in the past. But after a few tests, I was really surprised at the results I got with the 24 megapixel raw files, and I was determined to put it to serious use. And I actually did that for the first time last fall when I got it. I first used it when the colors were close to peak. Now back to the Washington, D.C. trip. Well, wouldn't you know, we ended up at Great Falls of the Potomac one morning. That just happens to be one of the most awesome opportunities for landscape photography I've ever seen just about anywhere. Great Falls has a lot of rocks, water, trees, waterfalls, rapids, woods, and more. All of my favorite things. Good thing I packed the lenses I did, and especially that 16mm wide angle, because I was well equipped to capture some high quality photos, regardless of the size of my camera bag and gear. Very small in this case. Yep. All right, awesome light here on a light overcast Saturday morning at Great Falls of the Potomac, Virginia side again. I just put the 16mm on the A6000 because we want to take a few more wide shots, and then we're going to wrap it up here because it's going to get really crowded. So if you come to Great Falls, come during the week or come early in the morning. That's your best bet. So here's a wide view video of the Virginia side of the falls. You can see from this and from the previous still photos that it can be quite a high contrast scene. As I mentioned earlier, the weather was a perfect light overcast, so the highlights in the moving water weren't too bright, and plenty of detail was retained in those areas, and the shadows did okay at the same time. Shooting in RAW mode ensured that I captured a 12 or 13 stop dynamic range. I also used a handheld incident light meter to accurately measure the light falling on the subject, then overexposed slightly by about a half stop. To top it all off, we also visited the Maryland side of Great Falls later in the afternoon. By the way, the Potomac River is the Maryland-Virginia border from Harper's Ferry all the way to Chesapeake Bay. It was a bit more cloudy in the late afternoon, but still great light for more pictures. As you can see from these still images I'm going to show you here, it's a lot different on the Maryland side as the river has multiple channels and some smaller waterfalls. The smaller channels and waterfalls have a lot more of a mountain stream look, I'd say, along with some nice woodland scenes and some dogwoods in bloom on the hike across a few bridges back to the main channel. And this is the same part of the river here that you see from the Virginia side. Just more rocks. So now I always recap what was vintage about this photography session and what was digital. The digital part is fairly obvious. I used a digital camera with one modern wide-angle lens, the Rokinon 16mm, made specifically for the APS-C format. And of course, whether I shoot with film or digital cameras, the images always end up in the computer for editing and output. I took 157 pictures at Great Falls on the A6000. I edited those images in Darktable, which is an open source and free software program that runs on all operating systems, including Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. I like it because of the wide variety of available modules, and especially the Filmic module, that enables some pretty wide-ranging and fine-tuned tonal adjustments in lieu of the usual base curve, and something I find lacking in Lightroom. This lets me more fully utilize the entire 12 or 13 stop dynamic range captured by my digital cameras. In terms of editing the images in general, I found that some highlight and shadow adjustment made them more pleasing and natural looking. So this is off, that's on. I like that look better. This is an easy adjustment in Lightroom as well. Also, some of the rocks on the right side of the image in shadow look a little better with some localized brightening using a hand-drawn mask. Other than that, there weren't too many adjustments overall. This particular image here was shot with the modern 16mm Rokinon lens, and I'm going to magnify it just a little bit here. So the corners it's sharp from corner to corner. That's what I really love about this thing. Every corner of the image is sharp as well as the center. And the cost was pretty much in line with what I'd pay for a vintage or legacy wide-angle lens, under $200 used. The vintage part of this session would be that I actually used the film era Olympus lenses and Tokina zoom for about half of the pictures. Just to demonstrate that, let's go back to the Darktable for a minute. This one was shot with the widely acclaimed Olympus 24mm prime lens, the OM Zuko lens. And I'm just going to zoom around here at the usual 50%. And you can see this one's sharp from edge to edge as well, corner to corner. And that's just as good as the modern Rokinon 16mm. And this one was shot with the Tokina SD 28 to 70mm at about 50 or 60 millimeters. And we'll zoom that in too. So that's pretty sharp in the middle. Corner performance is very good. And these are all at f8, by the way. The little Tokina zoom is widely reported as mediocre on the web, and it's very inexpensive at around $30. I may have gotten this for $15 or $20 even. But my tests and actual field images have shown me otherwise. I might have lugged a medium format film camera around on similar landscape photography outings, but the tiny A6000 gave me results just as good. The main point of this video is to demonstrate that limiting the gear you lug on a trip can actually enhance the photography you produce and the enjoyment you experience, especially if you're hanging out with people or doing a lot of walking and hiking. So that's it for the Great Falls photography video. It was great fun, and we had unexpected awesome weather and light for some good landscape photography. Thank you for watching my channel. I hope you found this video useful and informative and learned something from it as well. I've also put some more information and a few links in the description section. If you enjoyed watching this video, please like it by clicking on the thumbs up icon. And so you don't miss out on any future vintage plus digital photography videos, please subscribe to my channel by clicking on the red subscribe button. And of course, feel free to leave me any comments you may have. I'll be back again soon with yet another fun and informative vintage plus digital photography video.